Despite having a roster of well over 100 wrestlers at any given point across its 6-decade existence, WWE has traditionally handpicked just one wrestler to receive a monster push. First it was Bruno Sammartino, then it was Hulk Hogan, then it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, then it was John Cena, and now it's Roman Reigns. This understandably leaves the other 99-odd wrestlers in no man's land, struggling to find their footing in WWE while the bosses turn a blind eye to their general existence. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 wrestlers who didn't reach their full potential in WWE. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. Number 10. Shinsuke Nakamura. There was major buzz in early 2016 with rumors floating around of AJ Styles, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows all making the jump from New Japan to WWE. There was substantial buzz, however, with the added rumor that Shinsuke Nakamura was also swapping Tokyo for Stamford. Confirmed that January to be joining NXT, Nakamura had an electric arrival. He debuted during NXT TakeOver Dallas over WrestleMania 32 weekend, defeating Sami Zayn in one of the era's defining matches, and he was instantly the most popular act on the Black and Gold brand, thanks to his, well, catchy entrance music. The success followed the King of Strong style throughout his entire year-long stint on the Black and Gold brand and onto the main roster the following April, but things quickly fell off a cliff once he started a main event push. A victory in the Royal Rumble match in 2018 resulted in Shinsuke being set for a battle with AJ Styles at WrestleMania 34, which fans expected would be of a similar quality to the epic Wrestle Kingdom clash from 2016. Well, it wasn't obviously, and it was actually one of the most disappointing matches of all time. From there, Nakamura lost the feud to Styles, which involved a lot of his hits below the belt, and he was relegated to enhancement status. He receives the occasional glimmer of hope, such as his underrated 2023 World Heavyweight title program versus Seth Rollins, but any potential success on the main roster was rendered dead when he lost consecutive pay-per-view matches to Jinder Mahal. Number 9. Finn Balor. Similar in a sense to ex-New Japan colleague Shinsuke Nakamura, in that his 2014 move to WWE was among the most buzzworthy stories of the year, Finn Balor very nearly could have missed out on placement on lists such as this had it not been for his ill-fated injury at SummerSlam 2016. Having become one of the most crucial faces of NXT's Black and Gold era, Finn was drafted to Raw during the 2016 brand split as a first-round pick, being selected ahead of Roman Reigns, John Cena and Brock Lesnar. From there, he even defeated Roman Reigns to secure himself a match against Seth Rollins to determine the inaugural Universal Champion. Everything couldn't have gone any smoother, which is why that shoulder injury was such a saddening blow. A torn labrum sidelined Balor until the Raw after WrestleMania 33. By the time he returned, WWE had already moved past its desire to position the Irishman as a main event player, as was proven by the fact that he was losing to Kane, a part-timer by the end of 2017. Like Shinsuke, Finn has received the odd push here and there, has held the United States, Intercontinental and Tag Team titles, and even returned to NXT for a second NXT Championship winning run, but he's never managed to regain the spot he held before SummerSlam 2016. Number 8. Vader. It wasn't entirely surprising that Vader went down as one of the biggest flops in WWE history, as despite being one of WCW's greatest stars, it had become obvious that Vince McMahon only signed his competition's biggest attractions to dig their careers into the ground. Depressingly, this wasn't the only reason for Vader's WWE career being as mediocre as it was, as the most prolific cause was the actual wrath unleashed on him by Shawn Michaels at the 1996 SummerSlam pay-per-view. Challenging the Heartbreak Kid in the main event for the WWF Championship, Vader forgot to roll out of the way during a planned diving elbow drop, which infuriated Michaels to the point that he instead landed on his feet, stomped directly on Vader's face, and screamed obscenities at him live on pay-per-view. After this, Vader was never again viewed as a main eventer, with a planned title win at Survivor Series being given to Psycho Sid instead. Now, even though Shawn Michaels had taken liberties with Vader while live on air, Vince McMahon actually went against the Mastodon, with Jim Ross giving an insight into the dynamic between Michaels and McMahon on his Grill and JR podcast.
I just thought it was totally uncalled for. Shawn had the deck stacked, and because he had Vince in his back pocket. You know, Vince has often told me, you know, that goddamn Shawn Michaels reminds me of me when I was younger. Okay. Did you do a lot of super kicks when you were young, Vince?
Yeah, right.
But he's talking obviously about Shawn's attitude, his demeanor, that type of thing, Conrad. And the damn match got, you know, as Meltzer's ratings, it got 4 stars, and it could have been a 5-star match if some of that childish bullshit had not occurred.
By 1998, Vader would be reduced to the status of a jobber to the stars, and he quickly wanted out of WWE to return to Japan. Vader would make some one-off special appearances in WWE, but he would never again even reach the heights that he was once promised in WWE. Number 7. Dean Ambrose. When a prominent wrestler leaves WWE, there's always a sense of belief that they will one day return, and about 95% of the time they do, but don't expect to see Dean Ambrose resurrected anytime soon. He absolutely hated his final year in the company, expressing his gripes with the creative process on Wife for an Apex Oral Sessions podcast.
One thing that I want to do, if I have something to prove, it's that I want to prove that your creative process, the WWE's creative process, sucks. It does not work. It's absolutely terrible. And I've said that to Vince. I've said that to Hunter. I've said that to Michael. Hey, I think that whatever, I can't even tell you how their system works. It's some kind of system of meetings that take place in Stamford, and there's a home team. There's writers and producers and production meetings, and nobody knows what's approved and what's not. And like the bureaucratic red tape you have to go through to get anything approved. Yeah. And it's crazy. It doesn't work. It's killing the company. I think Vince is the problem.
His disconnect is understandable. Even though he had a 3-month reign with the WWE Championship and was part of one of the most successful stables in history, The Shield, it was clear that WWE absolutely didn't value him as a performer, or at the very least, they didn't value him as a performer he used to be. Under Vince McMahon's pen, he swapped barbed wire, glass, and garden streamers for being electrocuted by a television, dousing opponents in ketchup and mustard, and dressing up as the Mountie. His final months were astonishingly even worse, as he was scripted to mock the leukemia diagnosis of former Shield partner Roman Reigns. It was no wonder that he opted against renewing his contract with the company. Number 6. Wade Barrett. Wade Barrett should have been a home run for Vince McMahon to book. Tall, chiseled, and British, he was something of a throwback to the golden era, so it wasn't exactly a surprise that he was selected as the winner of NXT's first season. He subsequently led the Nexus, whose debut angle remains one of the greatest moments in Raw history, and whose continued beatdowns of the roster, as well as Vince McMahon himself, put the group in a good spot. The catch? They struck a John Cena-shaped iceberg at SummerSlam that single-handedly squandered any success they would have on the main roster. Cena annihilated the group, despite backstage pushback from Edge and Chris Jericho, and back-to-back WWE title losses to Randy Orton did Wade no favors. A planned Money in the Bank win in 2011 was switched on the day to Daniel Bryan, one of his old Nexus running partners. No matter how many times he won the IC Championship, Barrett consistently failed to break the glass ceiling that was above his head. He departed WWE in 2016 and hasn't wrestled since, having openly discussed how he was miserable in his final few years, but he has returned to the company as a commentator, a role that he's transitioned into seamlessly. Number 5. Ryback. Comparisons to Goldberg really hampered Ryback's success in WWE, but frequent accusations of being an unsafe worker absolutely killed his career. Re-debuting on the SmackDown after WrestleMania 28, Ryback began working the squash match circuit, making light work of whichever jobber WWE had hired for the week before he transitioned into obliterating WWE's in-house lower carders. It was the exact blueprint WCW had used for Goldberg, but unlike him, Ryback's push ended without a world championship. He lost to CM Punk at Hell in a Cell 2012, which also ended his undefeated streak, while a 2013 feud versus John Cena also ended without the big guy becoming WWE champion, despite him having allegedly been promised the title by Vince McMahon. As for him apparently being an unsafe worker, in 2014, the same year that Ryback concussed Dolph Ziggler following a stiff clothesline, he was brutally slammed by CM Punk during his infamous tell-all appearance on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast.
All right, I'll work Ryback. And I go up to Ryan and I go, hey man, clean slate. Let's kill this. Let's show them, that you're better than they think you are. Let's show them that I'm better than they think I am. And let's turn this mid-card shit into a main event. Yeah, I'm really excited. Great, blah, blah, blah. First night out, gorilla press through a table, misses the table. Dumps me on the concrete ground. Tilts my pelvis. Me up for weeks.
So
Number 4. Mr. Kennedy. The career of Mr. Kennedy will probably go down as one of the biggest what-ifs in wrestling history. One of the greatest talkers of his generation, Kennedy was also a good hand between the ropes, and it looked as though his hard work was finally paying off when he became the third Mr. Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 23. Sadly, however, he was booked to drop the briefcase to Edge just weeks later after suffering a suspected triceps tear, which carried a layoff period between 5 and 7 months. But the injury was in fact a hematoma, which would sideline him for just 5 to 7 weeks. Fast forward a few months and Mr. Kennedy was once again being groomed for a major push, as he was to be revealed as Mr. McMahon's illegitimate son. Unfortunately, he was legitimately suspended after being named in September's steroid scandal, upon which he was replaced in the storyline by, of all people, Hornswoggle. This marked the absolute end of any push for Mr. Kennedy in WWE, and he was ultimately released in 2009 after allegedly injuring Randy Orton. He didn't, but that's a story for a different day. Number 3. Eddie Guerrero. Hearing Eddie Guerrero's name on a list such as this may sound strange, but it's true. He didn't really reach his full potential in WWE. Eddie's defining moment in the company was unquestionably his WWE Championship win at No Way Out 2004. But not even this was a completely positive moment in his life. JBL, who ultimately dethroned Eddie for the title at the end of a bloodthirsty feud between the two, explained the pressure that Guerrero felt as a champion during an appearance on Bruce Pritchard's Something to Wrestle With podcast.
Yeah, Eddie felt it tough, and I wish he'd got the title again, because I think he'd have been fine with it. When he got it the first time, it was, and I've seen this happen a lot with champions. Some people grow with the title, some people shrink with this title, some people become overwhelmed with the title. Eddie became a little bit overwhelmed with it, and I don't mean that from the ring work, but Eddie was always looking at ratings and looking at crowd size, and it really, okay, well, the rating was down here. Maybe, is that my fault? And I would say, Eddie, you weren't even in the segment. So no, it wasn't your fault. It really weighed on him being champion. He knew the pressure of it. He took that pressure really tough. And I wish he had become champion again, because I think he'd have been completely different. Now, that being said, none of it showed in his work. Absolutely zero of it ever showed in his work that he was cracked or anything else. But there was a lot of pressure you could tell that Eddie felt. And by what he talked about, I said, hey, let's just do quality. Let's not worry about ratings. Let's not worry about crowds. And he go, well, we got to do this. We got to do that. It really weighed on him.
Tragically, Eddie Guerrero passed away in November of 2005 at the tender age of just 38 years old. His career remains one of the most fondly discussed in history, even if there was still so much left on the table. Number 2. Muhammad Hassan. Muhammad Hassan was one of the most unnerving characters in WWE history, and none of it was really his fault. Played by Mark Copani, who is actually of Italian descent, he was cast as a wrestler of Jordanian-Palestinian descent who was sent out in WWE to eradicate the prejudice placed upon Arab Americans following 9/11. It instantly reeked of political controversy, but things took a dark turn in July of 2005 on an episode of SmackDown taped on July 4th. Hassan ordered a group of men wearing black ski masks who were ostensibly portrayed as terrorists to beat down The Undertaker and carry him out of the arena. The episode then aired on July 7th, the day of the London bombings. The segment aired unedited, and WWE even doubled down on it in the weeks that followed, despite pushback from UPN, which aired SmackDown in the US. As a result, Hassan was swiftly removed from television when The Undertaker sent him crashing through the stage with a last ride at the Great American Bash, and he never appeared again before his September release. The worst part, he was reportedly scheduled to become the World Heavyweight Champion at SummerSlam. Instead, his legacy lives on as a controversial footnote. And number 1, Christian. It's hardly a secret that Vince McMahon absolutely hated Christian, but the level of contempt he held for Captain Charisma runs deeper than most realize, alongside forcing Todd Grisham to solemnly declare, "It's Christian!" When he returned in 2009, he allegedly wanted a blue dot over his face whenever he appeared on screen in 2005. Why exactly McMahon hated Christian so much is anyone's guess, though Jim Ross debated this on his Grill and JR podcast that his physique had a big part to play in it.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of absurd because Christian deserved more time. He could help us. He could help. He could work with these guys that were less talented than him and make them look good. I think Vince's issue with Christian was Christian's physique. He's not a big guy. He's always in great shape, but he's not a big guy. And Vince, has these hard-ons for big guys, big teams more often than not.
Of the 2 times Christian went elsewhere after being miscast in WWE, he found great success. He became a main event star when he jumped to TNA in 2005, and he rejuvenated his career upon joining AEW in 2021, having been retired for 7 years, bar a one-off Royal Rumble return. But there you have it, folks, 10 wrestlers who never reached their full potential in WWE. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.